Okay, good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's okay. Hope everyone's well. Hope everyone's had a good last couple of weeks. Obviously, we didn't go live last week, and apologies for that. I had every intention of doing so, but unfortunately, it couldn't be the case. But I did put out some content for you beforehand. I feel like this day has taken a lifetime to get here. And, part of me has to say, is it really even that important to the crypto world? I don't know. I'm sure whatever happens over the next 24, 48 hours will have a reaction to the market. But deep down, I just, I'm always thinking crypto is going to move from bottom left to top right. So let me just change one of these charts down here. Anyway, obviously, what are we going to talk about? It's the 5th of November. There is nothing else to talk about except for the US elections. And that's weird because we're mostly based in the UK and we have no saying what happens, but we're going to speculate. We're going to talk about it. We're going to have a look at what price can do in and around there, and also other events that are going on this week which could help move the market one way or another. Personally, I think it's going to be an incredibly volatile week. We've got the elections results probably, well, I don't know how it works in the UK. We get sort of exit poll data, as we kind of know as soon as the vote's closed where we're going to stand. In the US, it is slightly different, and it could take, days. And if it's super, super close, maybe even weeks before we find this one out. But if it is days, 24, 48 hours, then funnily enough, we might be finding out the election result right on the FOMC federal rate announcement day as well. So Thursday, actually, to me, is probably gearing up to be a more volatile day than perhaps today or early hours of tomorrow, maybe. But anyway, let's just jump straight in and see where we can go from this. I'm going to just touch on the charts just a little bit to start off with. Then we'll get into the US elections. I mean, to be honest, what do I really know about the US elections, having never voted in them? Not particularly too much. I'll try and navigate my way through there and we can speculate on where things are going to go. But ultimately, it's out of our hands now. And whether you want blue or red, whether you want Trump or Harris, left or right, whatever it is, we'll just have to wait and see how that one goes. But looking at the Bitcoin chart, 3-day time frame, just so we can squeeze it all in there. I don't think it's particularly looking too bad. Today's price action, which we'll look a little bit later on, has helped move this green candle up there. But ultimately, even before that, we were kind of seeing price sitting in and around that sort of $67,500. A lot of price action previously along that level. So it made sense that we would have some sort of retracement back there, hopefully find some sort of support to come back up. But we are above the 7-month long resistance line. We've been above that for almost a month now. And as long as we continue to build above that, then I don't think we're going to be too far away from the all-time high. And last week, I filmed that video and then it immediately had that run up. And I think we got to about 73,000. What did we get to last week? It was close. 73,700. I think 73,850 was the previous all-time high. So incredibly close for all intents and purposes. Just a nice run up there and then a retest off that. So for me, where Bitcoin's currently sitting at the moment, and unless we actually fall back below this trend line and close below it, let's just call it 64,500, then I don't think we've got too much to worry about in the medium term. Short term, that might be painful, particularly for altcoins. But there's plenty of room for the market to move up, back up to retesting 73,800, or moving back down from here. And as I say, down to around about 64,000. And that kind of level creates a lot of opportunity for volatility for the market makers to move on. So, for those of you that are thinking about trading, for me personally, not doing any trading, certainly today with where it's going. Don't like to trade on FOMC days. And for me, this week really isn't about trading. It's just about seeing where the market is going to go. I do want to a lot of us don't hold Casper anymore. I know there's been a little bit of a sale, but we've talked about it for so long. I think it's only fair to continue talking about that. And I will go into Bitcoin in a little bit more detail later on. Casper, this is actually on the weekly time frame. I'm not sure why, but look at it. It has just waterfalled off. What's that? 7 weeks in a row of red candles. I know we're currently green at the moment, but we haven't closed on this one yet. So really fallen away. What it has fallen down to, for those of you who are still holding, that sort of 11, 10 cent level, lot of support previously in and around there at the turn of the year. But what I would say is a loss of that level, particularly where we stand now, I can see a retest down to 5 cents. Absolutely can. And whatever fundamentals were keeping Casper high when the rest of the market was dropping down over the summer, it seems to have flipped now. So, whether or not there's been a lack of interest in Casper, the memeability around it may have shied away. Just the fact that meme coins have started to take more attention of the mindset of people that are just looking for what is the latest hot potato to grab hold of. And so maybe that's where it is. Or it's actually, just whales taking profit who have held it for a long time. But whatever it is, the price really is struggling with Casper, unfortunately, at the moment. We've got total 3, which we'll sort of bring up again. Now, not the worst looking chart at the moment. Seen a 6-7 week consolidation period here at the moment. Of course, it's at the lower end of that consolidation period right now. So obviously we're closer to that falling back down, but generally a fairly decent rectangle box is forming here with that sort of 580 billion as the base, 640 as the ceiling, and we're moving in and around it. But again, similar to Bitcoin, as long as we stay above this sloping line, then I don't really have too much to worry about. And right now we could fall all the way down to 520 billion before we saw any real trouble. What I would say, and when we get into the market later, Bitcoin obviously breaching that 60% on the Bitcoin dominance and then continuing to climb, that is just taking away from altcoins at the moment. So there are obviously some altcoins that are doing quite well to try and prop that up, but a lot of altcoins are bleeding significantly, not just in dollar value, barring today, but also in BTC value. So yeah, definitely one to keep a watch on. And then of course, our beloved, our one and only BitTensor. Now, BitTensor has been an interesting one. For those of you that are heavily invested in BitTensor, like I am, the last 7 weeks have been quite tough. That 650 level and then just a melt away. There's been some ranges within these candles, don't get me wrong, but ultimately falling all the way down to $400 yesterday. And we have seen a relatively decent bounce at the moment. But when we have a look at BitTensor a little bit later on, I'm not over enamored with its current price action, if I'm perfectly honest. BitTensor has a lot of work to do to convince me that we are getting back into a bullish upside, and we know it can do it. When we look at where things was early September and that move all the way up through September, we know it can do it, but we need it to pass some pretty significant levels to do that, not just from a Fibonacci level, but also previous price action, psychological levels, 500, 550, 600. All of those need to be crossed. EMAs all need to be overtaken, and we've got all of these fibs to fight through. So there's a lot of work to do. I do take consolidation actually that at least on the 3-day time scale, we've fallen down here and we've had a good bounce from 400, which is this line I've not moved. It's just been there before. It's not the most accurately drawn because it's a 3-day time scale, but we found some support on that. And at the moment, and again, there's 2.5 days left on this candle, we have seen a move up. We'll go into Tau in a lot more detail a little bit later on. Okay. I should have said if you got any questions except for how the US election works, then please put them in the chat. If you do have anything on the US election, then we'll try and answer it. But I am not the world's expert on that, as we will find out in a moment. But this is it. This is what we've all been waiting for. Whether or not you care about politics in the slightest, it's all about who's going to be the next leader of the free world, as they like to call it. Who is going to be controlling the US economy? That's ultimately why we care about this, because we want to know whether or not the next leader of the free world is going to, stimulate the price of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And both sides have tried to make a stand on cryptocurrency. Obviously, Trump seems to be the most supportive out of the two candidates there, but part of me wonders whether or not that's just something to talk about before he actually takes office in 2025, and the real proof will be in the pudding as to what happens then. But that we'll just have to wait and see. So for those of you that are going to be on Twitter over the next 48 hours, you're going to see the map of America a lot. It's going to be broken down like this by state with lots of numbers attached to it. Those numbers effectively represent electoral college votes, and effectively the first, it will be the first because you can only have one of them. The first side to get over 270 or above is going to become into office in January next year. So this is where we look, and it looks, like a fairly open map there. But actually, which is quite strange compared to the UK, is the vast majority of these states are leaning one way or the other, and they'll never change. And so really, this is the map that we're actually interested in. Reds and blues have already filled out because it's very unlikely that those states are going to change. So for the Democrats, 226 seats have already been effectively won to them. The Republicans, pretty close, but 230 to them. So actually, there's a battleground of 82 seats across, I think it's 6 states. It might be 7, probably is 6 states. And so Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia, I think, if I can remember my American states correctly, are the ones that people are interested in. And so that's where the action is. And some of these, I think, like Pennsylvania or Georgia or whatever, they don't count them quickly. It takes a while to get the votes in, which is why, if it's a particularly close race, we might be waiting 48 hours, 72 hours until all those votes are counted. Now, voting's still going on. Don't think it closes. I mean, on the East Coast, it might close at around about 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is about 11 o'clock at night our time. But on the West Coast, we're probably going to be looking in the very early hours of the morning before voting even closes. So that's why you can see that actually we may not get a clear picture of this tonight. If we do start getting a clear picture of it tonight, then the market that's going to be able to take advantage of that the most is going to be the Asian market because, well, the UK and the US markets are closed. So we might get some interesting price action from the Asia market. Our first initial reaction, and when we have a look at my market makers kind of charts later, we can talk about where vector candles may go and how that may sort of give us a direction of sort of recoveries, whether or not on the short term for where the movement's going to go. But certainly it'll be Asia that gets the first bite of the cherry as information starts to come through. Interestingly, though, where does the money place the winners? So still Donald Trump, according to Polymarkets, 61 versus effectively 40%, 39%, which is quite a difference. There was some recovery of that the last couple of days. That seems to have sort of moved back above the 60% mark. This is kind of Polymarkets is a crypto market. It's very heavily pushed on Twitter, which Twitter in my mind at the moment is very right-leaning, certainly in my newsfeed. So actually may not be the greatest indicator. But a couple of weeks ago, we touched on this with how did the actual betting firms look at it. I've only pulled one up this time because they all say the same. But actually, it's certainly in the in the UK betting markets, pretty much got Donald Trump down as favourites to win. Doesn't mean he will, but they know something that we necessarily don't. So I lost my train of thought thanks to my dog. I don't know what I was going to say. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. Mainstream media, interesting. It's very, whatever I'm seeing, it's a coin flip. It's on a knife edge. It's going to be incredibly close. And I don't know if it is. My thought process around this is, are they just saying that today to try and drum up any sort of people that sat in their ass and can't be asked to vote, thinking, actually, I could make a difference. So let's just call it a coin toss, because the money's saying it's going to go somewhere else. These guys don't usually like to lose money, and I'm sure they take their data from a lot more sources than just asking someone on the streets, which is never normally a useful way of doing this. But I sort of said in the poll there, who do you think will win? It's a genuine question of who you think will win rather than who we want to win. We're kind of coming out where the money market is at the moment, and certainly where the crypto money market is. It's 57.43. I can't vote. If I had a vote, it'd probably be Trump. So that might take us that 59, 60% to 40% kind of level. I know I said, who do I think will win, not who I want to win. I do think Trump will win. That's just my opinion. And again, maybe that has been blindsided by I spend an awful amount of time on crypto Twitter every day. And so that's all I actually really see in terms of information coming through. It's very right-sided in terms of their views, and that might not give me a real reflection of where it is. I don't want to get dragged down the tinfoil hat of, illegal voting and all of those kind of machines and all that, and no ID needed to vote, etc. They are what they are. They can't be changed. It is what it's going to be. It's what it's going to be. But it does, when I ask that question of myself, who do I think will win? The information I've seen suggests that it should be Trump. But when I hear little stories like that, it kind of puts something in the back of my mind. So wondering whether my think is actually who I want to win, kind of overtaken there. But yeah, we shall see. I'm going to try and leave the US election, or at least my view on the US election there. Try and take it a little bit better, a little bit closer back to crypto. But inevitably, when I went on Cointelegraph, the first 5 stories were all about the US elections. And bearing in mind, as we've said, the US elections, they're only voting at the moment. There's nothing we can really do about it. But this is all we can see. And you can jump on, you can have a look at some of this stuff yourself. But it is very news-centric in the days leading up to it, but also today with this. But I just want to kind of start talking about how we can look at this from a market point of view. Because there is the US election, as I mentioned earlier on, and we'll have a look at. We've also got the federal rate cut as well. So 2 very big important news events. One of them, the federal rate cut, we know creates volatility, but it also actually has a genuine impact on the markets from a fiscal point of view. Whether the rates stay the same, whether they get up or down, financiers, investors, etc., can kind of understand with a relative sense of accuracy is what that will actually do to the market. So for me, that one is more of although it's volatile, I think we know which way it will go depending on what news we get. It's likely we're going to get a cut. It's more how big a cut are we going to get. If we don't get a cut, then I think that's going to send a very poor message to the rest of the world and the economies about how the US have handled inflation and also trying to sort of reduce their interest rates. If we do get a cut, I think that's going to be seen as positive. They can start carrying on with, we're going down the path. We've seen how many points we want to cut over the next 9 sessions, and we're on that journey. Everyone just rejoice together. That's fine. The US election itself, though, I wonder if this is more of a sell the news kind of event, and we see once it's done, doesn't matter who's in, some sort of move in the market, potentially even a fall in the market, which could be very quickly recovered. I'm not necessarily saying it isn't, but it's more based on a fundamental feel. And it is, build this huge sort of 6-month long, and it has felt like probably longer than 6 month discussion, get into that pinnacle, and then there's just an explosion, a blow off, because that's it, it's over, and we see the markets drop a bit. Exactly the same happened with the Bitcoin ETF, where we had 6 months of, it's happening. January comes around, Bitcoin price melts. So maybe this is a bit of sell the news, and that's why I think just in terms of trading, this may not be the week to start up any trading that you're doing. Just, buy yourself some time and see where it goes. If you're already in positions, then absolutely fair enough. Just make sure you manage profit levels and everything else appropriately. But there was one thing down here that caught my eye, and it's what I talked about a little bit earlier on, and it was just the fact that actually looking at the depth in the order book, looking at liquidity levels, and looking at the previous support and resistance that I mentioned earlier, there's a big block between, well, they say 66 here, and that's because of the liquidity levels, but between that 64,000 and that 74,000 kind of level, where actually there isn't that many liquidation levels appearing on the heat map. The order book from buys and sells is fairly evenly distributed. And so that just creates an opportunity for that volatility to come in. And bear in mind, we're sitting at around about 70,000, so quite smack bang in the middle of that. It just could go either way, regardless of results, regardless of what our opinions may be, regardless of TA. Once it's done, a massive news event like this leading to a sell the news or a buy the news, I suppose, if it wants to go up, you can just get caught completely off guard with that one. So there's definitely that. We've talked about FOMC. So here's the probability, 99% probability that we're going to see a 25 basis point rate cut. When the last rate cut happened, you can't see it on this because it only goes back as far as 1 month ago, this bottom right hand corner. 6 weeks ago when we had the last rate cut, Actually, initially afterwards, it was at 60 odd percent for 50 basis points rate cut. But over the last 6 weeks, with a lot of the data that has come through, actually, I think cooler heads have prevailed. And we've started to see more realistically, we're going to see that 25. And so everybody is absolutely expecting 25 basis cuts. A lot of the data is suggesting that that's exactly where we can take this. And I'd be incredibly surprised if they decide to have a no change or hike it. Now, so market would have already probably priced this in. Everyone's saying it's 99% bang on certainty. So we might actually see just a relatively, volatility immediately before and after, as we always do, but generally just the market continuing on from there. What I would say, though, is if we get the confirmation of the election on the same day that this thing comes out, I think we might be in for an absolute blockbuster of volatility. So if you are still in positions come Thursday, I'd seriously consider where your profit levels are and stop losses, just in case it moves a little bit too much. I think that was it on that one. This one caught my eye because after I got through my 5 articles on the US election, the first one that then came up was Crypto Twitter, a dangerous source of financial advice. I'm not going to go into this because I think you know as well as I do not really to trust any financial advice that you found on Twitter because, well, who knows what these people are saying. But what was interesting was an article that came from this, and 7 favorite words and phrases used by crypto shillers. And man, I use these words all the time, but DYOR, so do your own research. NFA, not financial advice. I mean, we don't start the stream by saying that, but effectively nothing is not financial advice. That's all I do is hodl. I rarely trade these days, so I'm always talking about hodling. Find a safe entry. I mean, got to look at the markets and conditions. I'm going to talk about that. I thankfully don't always say only up or to the moon. Well, I do say to the moon. I definitely recommend buying the dip. So actually, although I'm saying ignore them, I think I kind of fall within this. 5 out of the 7 favorite words of shillers I use on a regular basis. But yeah, interesting where it is. What is this one? Oh, and then finally, I posted this one in Discord earlier. But for those of you that actually thought that Harris was going to win, we'll end the poll there. Unfortunately, you're wrong. And that's not because of my opinion. Jim Cramer, he said the markets are reacting as if Harris would win. And if there's one thing that we can absolutely bet our house on, is that whatever Jim Cramer says, the opposite is going to happen. And so she must have been kicking herself today to find such an endorsement as that. But if the Jim Cramer contrarian indicator is anything to go by, it does look like Donald Trump will at least have an attempt at that. Will be in the White House next year. I was going to put a tinfoil hat on it, but that's not for now. Anyway, all a bit tongue-in-cheek. Don't think there's anything else in there worth looking at. No. Okay. Right. That's 23 minutes of that. Let's get into some charting, shall we? Okay, the usual chart that we always look at to start off with. No change here, but I have updated some of these liquidation levels, and they're the yellow boxes that you can see. And we can actually get a nice picture, visualization now of what I've been talking about. We've got levels at 66 to 65,000. We've got levels at 72 and a bit to around about 75,000. So that range in the middle, this range here is ideal for volatility. Moving up and down within that zone there is what we could expect. And with news events like we've got right now, a move up to 72,000, people singing from the roofs can then be met just as quickly with a move back down to 67,000. And in fact, that's exactly what we happened last week. We had this strong move up from 67,000 all the way up to the new all-time high. And then it corrected. These are 12-hour candles, so every 2 candles is a day. And it corrected again all the way back down within a matter of days. So big move up. Everyone was talking about it because they think Trump's going to win. I don't want to talk about that point of view now. But we can see this level of, I don't want to call it manipulation, but price movement, price action, repeating itself out. And why wouldn't market makers want to take advantage of that? What is interesting in the heat maps, I've closed it down, is there's very little, even on the lower time frames, very little YOLOing going on, very little high levels of liquidation since this price action building up here. Most people are playing it safe, keeping in these zones. So maybe that tells us something there. Now, what else is on this chart that we like to look at? Well, this goes all the way back to the all-time high in March and these fib levels here. And look at what that movement did. So we finally broke through the finally broke through the 786, moved all the way up. And now, obviously, we only got to 73600 or whatever it was, and the all-time high 73749, but it's pretty much gotten back to that fib level, full retracement there. It's come all the way back down, and what have we hit again? 786, and we've turned it around perfectly. We've shot back up here. This candle, plenty of time for this one to move again. Strong move up today, but a good bounce this morning off this level. And if you were just looking at the fibs alone, even if you took in the wicks really, and where these were building up, it's fairly close to this one here. You would expect some sort of reaction if it got to it. Maybe you waited, maybe you tried to ladder back in, but a strong reaction there. But it closed right on this. I mean, right on that level, and a bounce back up, I think just says a lot for where we are and how strong these levels have interacted all the way through. Maybe they're not as clean as that one there, but generally we see closes in and around these levels repeatedly. So again, proving that actually this is looking like a fairly strong fib level. That's why this is so important to crack. And then, hey, the longer we leave this, the higher this thing can go. And this white line here, let's change it. White line's not great. It's not great at all. Let's change it to blue. This blue line here is not, where it needs to go. It's just, this is a long-term trend line. So the longer this takes to get hit, it may never hit. It may turn around before it. But once we hit this, I think we'll see some sort of reaction. It's miles away at the moment, 90,000. Don't think we have anything really to worry about that right now. Something I did see posted in Discord, but I've also seen on Twitter, is talking about Bitcoin price after elections. So we marked them all on there. This may look like the 4-year halving, but it's not. I've just got the months up here. So we've got November 12, 16, and 20 for when elections happen. Then we've got the blue horizontal rays going across, which is what the price was at the time of that month, not the election. I mean, it's generally at the beginning of the month anyway, but in and around there, and then, where it's gone. I mean, look, please take what I'm about to say now with a huge pinch of salt. Buy the dip, YOLO, and all of the other words I'm not supposed to say, because we've only had it 3 times. So, how accurate can this be? But the point people have been trying to make is, price action has never returned to the previous election level. So, election happens here. We've had a huge 10,000% move up. Okay, brilliant. But the price never came back down to that level. I mean, after a 10,000% move, you'd hope not. Then we had it in 2016, and the 2017 bull run takes it all the way back up. It never comes back down. It started off at 680. The lowest we get to is 3,000, give or take. Fair enough. This one here, again, price moves up. It doesn't look great at the moment because we're on the logarithmic chart, but obviously we moved from 13,000 to 69,000, a huge move up. Price comes down. First time it's got close, but the move up was only 400%. But actually, what do? We only get down to 15,000. We don't touch it again. So what people are effectively saying is, if I wanted to draw this now, I'd be like, right, okay, for 4 years' time, we've got that line in, and I can just put the ray in now. And, wherever we end up, 4 years' time, we're not going to be below 70,000. Yeah, okay. Maybe. I mean, I don't want to say that that's right or that's wrong, but, looking at the chart, it at least gives us some optimism, some hope that actually price continues to move up. It also says to me, it doesn't matter who's in, because over those periods we talked about, they've been red and they've been blue. And you know what Bitcoin's gone and done? It's still gone north. So that's why I say I don't think it necessarily matters in a long enough time frame. Yeah, okay, Trump has one thing. He wants the dollar to be the world superpower, super currency again. So he may have a different direction he wants to take it in. I don't really know what Harris wants to do, if I'm honest. I don't think many people do. But that will take the economy in another way. I get it. But actually, you know what? Bitcoin, it just seems to continue to go up. And it generally, in the past, has gone up pretty close to after the election. That all ties in with liquidity cycles. It all ties in with the 4-year cycle and everything else, but we know that we're close to that parabolic move up for Bitcoin, alts hopefully to follow afterwards. We may have actually already started it. It may have actually started in September as we come through there. And I'll tell you something we haven't talked about. Well, let's throw it up there. Because it was, when was it? It was just a couple of days before. So how did October finish for us? It finished, don't need that. It finished fairly decent. Finished at roughly 11%, which for green months is maybe the third worst green month, making it the fifth overall worst month for October, but it's still 10% better price range than what it was. We'll take it. Absolutely, we'll take it. And, you know, it's still validated this October theory. Even if it was 1%, it would have done that. Let's have a look at Bitcoin daily time frame now. Then we'll start having a look at it on some lower ones as well. And this just goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning. You know, we were in that sideways trend for a while. We broke through it. We've retested, as we talked about last week. We've flown back up to all-time high. I mean, let's face it. I don't think we were going to break through all-time high that quickly. We haven't. We've pulled back. We've shot up sharply. We've pulled back sharply. We've come down. I'm surprised we didn't come all the way back down to sort of this 66,000 level, but for whatever reason, we turned around to 66,500 and we've moved back up. And yeah, we'll see where this one goes. But that to me, for now, is fairly healthy. You know, W formation, if you want to have a look at it from that point of view. Out of here, retest, up again, another retest. Maybe finally that next move up. Now, I'm not saying that this is market maker theory on the daily time frame, because trust me, these moves are far too close. But I'm just looking at, you know, rising up retest. We talked about last week with we're still in that uptrend, and everything we've seen here is still suggesting we're in that uptrend. And in fact, because we had that there, this here, this coming around here is again giving us evidence that we may still be in that uptrend. Now I want to see a couple more candles up here, so I know that this is continuing back up. But, you know, still in that uptrend, still healthy direction for us to be going in. Just throw that on here and have a look at Bitcoin. Now on the 4-hour time frame, obviously we've got EMAs on here and we've got vector candles as well. We can start to see a bit of a picture of actually areas that we've bounced. So on the 4-hour, all the way down to this 200 EMA, and then a strong candle from that, climb back up. And those have taken us through the 10, the 20, and the 50, all of which we were below beforehand. Yeah, okay, all three of those are almost like a confluence now, just sat on top of each other. But right now, with 3.5 hours, this candle's only just started. Okay, so this last candle came down back to the 50, retesting it, but it's, you know, it held. This candle, it's above it. We've still got ages for it to go, so we'll have to wait and see. But good to see we are continuing to be above this for now. And I'd have to say that this zone here has got to be of interest, surely. You know, if we can move up as we have been doing, this is what I'd want to be looking at. And the upper side of it as well, because actually the bottom half of this vector candle has actually been recovered from this wick. So really we are kind of looking at sort of 71, high 71s, maybe 72,000 would be an area of interest, because on the 4-hour, there's nothing else down until 64,000, 63,000. So, you know, that's sort of the bottom level. It's this tiny little line here, in case you can't see it. There's a little bit there at 64,000, which maybe. So I'm thinking actually we can stay above that 50. We can get the 10 and the 20 to cross back over the 50, and we start snaking up that. And this is what I'd be looking. And then, of course, we're in for a run on 73,000. It comes with its own dangers, though, because a rejection at 73,000 after we run up could spell that. But, you know, that's just so we could speculate on everything here. But that's where I see that one going. I don't know if the 1 hour is going to really tell us anything different. Not necessarily. I mean, again, it has been downwards but sideways chop. So, you know, the 200, the 50, the 10, the 20, they've all caught up with each other. We're building support on that 50. We're trying to get back up. We'll just have to wait and see how that goes. And there's no surprise that they hit the 800, because we just looked on the 4-hour, hit the 200. Obviously, times that by 4 is where we're going to get the 800 from this one. So not too much to see there. Now that we're on the 1 hour, but if I put this on the half hour, I mean, we'll do it on the 1 hour, but you can kind of see, for me, there is some sort of M there. Drop 1, drop 2. Not really seeing a W here, though. That's the only thing, but it's starting to climb out. I would have liked to see another W in that bit. Sorry, somewhere in here. Will that climb out? But if we are on the climb out, this could just be the first retest before we make some sort of move up again. So I think it's hard with TA tonight because all of these things can absolutely be blown out of the water tomorrow. And so just, you know, reiterate it because I haven't said it for 5 minutes. Just take that with a pinch of salt in terms of how you're going to manage any trades or positions or entries. So as an example, yes, I done my monthly buy for BTC. I have been looking at just some other purchases, which I've just held off. I just thought, what's the point in doing it today? I might as well just see what happens tomorrow. And if it flies away, it does. Let's just pull that back. Okay. Let's have a look at some of the other ones. I did want to talk about Tau. Let's get it on the daily. So this is Tau. It is on the daily, okay. And I mentioned earlier, I'm not enamored with where Tau's price is right now. And that's, you know, I just got to be honest with that. We've had that huge climb up. And you know, when we were up here, we were talking about it's such a steep way up with nothing to hold on to. It's inevitable we'll probably find some sort of retracement back down here. And you know, I don't always listen to my own words because I started buying in, you know, here down to here. So, well, it was over here as well, but that's the area I was buying Tau in, even though I thought we might go lower. And I haven't done anything with it since. I've not sold any. But what I mentioned at the beginning of the stream was Tau, in my mind, has got far more work to do than the likes of Bitcoin to prove to me that it's turned around. And we'll throw a fib on in a minute, and we'll have a look at lower time frames. But even on the daily, you know, what do we see? Downtrend, clear downtrend. The 10's already crossed through the 50. The 20's just about to. The 10's heading down steeply. The 20's heading down steeply. The 50's just turning, and the 200's pretty much gone flat. So we are, you know, we've got that sell pressure at the moment. Now, that on itself doesn't mean that things can't turn around like that. Of course they can. But let's have a look at what price action has done. So we found the 50, we bounced, recovered, the 10, the 20 kicked us back down. We lost it all, we've come back down. What's the next line we're going to bounce ourselves on? EMA-wise, it's going to be the 200 EMA. We hit that one yesterday, and we bounced off it. Fairly strong, and I'm happy with the bounce. But what we hit, the first EMA we run into, the 10 EMA, it's exactly where we've just turned around now, which also happens to coincide with the only shelf that we have in and around this level. When we go on lower time frames, at least the shelf expands by a few candles. So I'm not convinced that this is anything more than just a pullback. You know, because you can only take so many days of drops. What was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 days of drops without some sort of at least relief from that. And potentially that's what we've got. And so actually, this area we're at now could be an ideal opportunity for anyone who's wanting to sidestep, thinking that we may go lower. No worries, Cliff. Thanks a lot. I won't be rattling on for too much longer myself. So let's have a look. You know, 4 hour. We'll come back to the daily when I throw a fib on later on. But look at the 4 hour. You know, so a very similar picture to what we saw before, but actually the 10, the 20, and the 50 trending downwards for a long time now, and basically the 10 and 20 have dictated the way that we're going. Whenever we break it, and we break it about once a week, the 50 batters us back down. So telling us where to go, up, 50 knocks us back down. Telling us where to go, up, 50 knocks us back down. Telling us where to go, up. What's just happened on the last 4 hour candle? What did we turn around on? The 50 EMA. So maybe that is telling us where we're going. We've got the 800 in play now. It did break it before, but obviously it recovered back through. Maybe we've got it. Now we can start to see some of these shelves that we talked about on the way up, these little breather points, because this was fairly crazy. You know, we maybe had every so often 3 or 4 candles that just sort of held us on. So we've had this one, which is where price action was. I'm gonna have to do it with, okay, so we had that one. It's a horrible set of colors. Let's knock that down. That'll do. This one here, incredibly poorly done there. Just caters to where we found our bottom. Does that make sense? And then we lose that. There's effectively 2 more. There's this one to 64, and then there's this one here, which is even closer. I have to pull this one across now. That's hard to see, and I'll get rid of those in a moment. But those shelves, those previous price actions, have actually all tied in sort of areas in which we've turned around or sort of found some support from. So when you actually tie that in, you can actually kind of make sense as to why we've made some movements there. So I would never just react. You know me, I like to see a little bit of confirmation. I don't need 100% of the move. But I am curious, you know, if price starts to turn around for Tau, and potentially head back down, then this could just be one of those points we look back and go, it's so obvious that this was just a retest. So I want to see how the 10 and the 20 react, especially around that 200. Do we come back down here? Now that might mean that I have to wait to 420 to get out, you know, retrace of the entire daily candle. If that's the case, so be it, because it's fairly likely, if that is the case, that we're probably going to see the bottom part of this 360 level. There's at least a little bit of a move to be made there. Let's go back to the daily and throw a fib on now, just so we can just have a look from that too. I might get rid of the other indicators if it's a bit messy. Now previously we've done 2 fibs, and so we've done this one, which, okay, but normally we take it from this one. Okay, so we've not quite hit the 618, which, you know, charts don't lie there. The 382 was a very good level with this fib, and even I suppose the 5, but we haven't, this candle here, I mean, if we'd continued down fine, it's kind of bucked the system a little bit. Now we need to see how this candle's going to close, and go from there. I thought it was the 4 hours on here, it's actually a daily. The levels, now it's getting kind of crazy. But what I would say is that lower 360 I was talking about, maybe we even, if it does break, we get to 345, maybe you can put a low ball in down there with this fib. Although now it's on the 4, I'd need to do that and that. Yeah, 342, still pretty close. But yeah, that's kind of where I see it. I'm going to get rid of this fib because you saw it better on the daily, and it's just hurting my eye, so it must be hurting yours as well with that. So I'm still in Tau. You're going to see how percentage-wise of Tau I'm in. I'm fully back into my Tau allocation, so there's no reason for me to step out now, but alarm bells are ringing. You know, some of the things that I was waiting for down here as it was falling the back end of last week, I was saying to myself, I'm waiting for a retest of the 50 EMA. Hadn't materialized. Now it has materialized. It's retested and rejected. I kind of got to be saying to myself, what's the risk to reward right now for the move? And it always in the back of my mind is sell the news event, or a fundamental event such as the election could totally blow the TA out of the water. So maybe actually I just have to wait a little bit longer than I would normally. And by that time, it may get to sub 400 and it's just not worth it. And if that's the case, then we just ride it and wait in the position that we're in. But that's where we are. CAS, again, I mean, it's very similar. It's just been over a longer period to my thought process with Tau. Definitely in a downtrend. An incredible amount of work to do to convince us otherwise. And even like Tau, but probably from a longer point of view, this one has bucked the system recently more than anyone else. It's fallen harder than a lot of the other major altcoins, and I appreciate memes move around incredible amounts. But you can see, you know, this is on the 4 hour. It's not exactly the 5-minute time frame here. 10, 20, 50, 200, 800 EMA, all moving down. This thing has got some work to do. And okay, we've breached the 10 and the 20, but we do that all the time. The 50 bats us down. We've never even attempted to retest all the way up to the 200 yet. And I dare say a lot of people probably got out at around about 12, 13 cents. So it's got to make it all the way up to the 200 before you even actually experience that you've lost out on that. So there's still plenty to work with within there. I mean, most alts are bled. Let's not kid ourselves. Near, one of my favorites. I probably should have let it go a while ago, but it's still an incredible amount of profit for me. So I'm keeping it like this. Fallen hard over the last 2 weeks or so. Dot died. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a few weeks' time. But definitely ranging down. Render, again, really struggling. Solana, probably one of the only ones that is bucking the system. And it's got the power of meme coins behind that to help do it. But even over the last few days, week, had a strong correction back down. For those of you that are looking for a safer play, then I suggest at the moment that Solana's probably is one. Nice pullback there. Got some real world, in inverted commas, utility in the fact that it at least is being used for meme coins. So there's a potential there. Ethereum, just, struggling. Bottom of this range, struggling. A lot of the other things sort of saying it doesn't even have the ETFs to try and help it up there. And I think last time I tried to draw some sort of line like that. It's broken that at the moment. It's retested it. So maybe it can make it back up, but it is smothering it. So one to certainly look at. These are all my meme coins down here, which I literally, before I went live, bought some of this one. And since then, it's dropped about 15 cents. So just goes to show you can't time it more right. Let's have a look at some other charts. So that's CME. Don't need to have a look at that one. So here we go. Bitcoin dominance. Now this is, if we talk about Tau and Casper having negative looking EMAs, this one here is the antithesis of that. I mean, 10, 20, 50, 200, 800, all trending upwards. This one is smartly just sort of taking the stairs all the way up from the 10 and the 20. Not even bothering to look at the 50 EMA, to be perfectly honest with you. And it's looking very, very healthy. If that was a crypto, you'd be delighted. I mean, it is a crypto, it's Bitcoin. And so, very strong movements up there. I don't really know when this is going to slow down. Maybe next week we will go into sort of previous cycles of where it's got to. But, we try and have a look at, we found that bottom on September 20 before Bitcoin rallied up. And, when Bitcoin had that move and it left alts behind and it sort of breached 40,000 for that first time. I mean, look, it got all the way up to 70%. Now we're a more mature market now, millions of tokens rather than tens of thousands. But still, it is dominating. And you got to say to yourself, well, we're currently sitting at the moment, if 60.67 doesn't hold, why can't it get to 64? If this was just a chart of price action, why can't it get there? I think it could. I think it quite easily could. This is a wild thing to do, but yeah, I thought that was going to come in around 64. So if it's a fib level, then 64, it could get there. If this was previous price action, which it kind of is, because Bitcoin price versus the rest of the market, its current level now is the resistance, isn't it? It will support there as well, but it is resistance. And, once it breaks that, the next one isn't really till 64. So I think that's definitely something to consider there. What am I doing here? Shut that down. Total 3 we've talked about. Total 2 is just going to be the same. Tau BTC is interesting. Because I sold my BTC for Tau around about here. So again, don't get them all right. Can't get them all right. And obviously I should have held on and could have got myself a decent amount more. But it felt like that was a good level, previous support, bounced it off it. But again, if I'd looked at this chart more often, it's come straight back up to see where the 10 and the 20 have crossed over, rejected back down, and it's just storming away. And right now, maybe you can see it getting to 6776 before coming back down. It is getting squeezed between these two, but we really need to see Tau turn it around for that to happen. Dollar, no real surprise right now that it's having some sort of reaction leading up to elections. Market didn't really know who's going to be in charge in 2 months' time. When it does, I'm sure the dollar will react accordingly. We'll know whether or not investors favor either party, depending on what the dollar does with that. NASDAQ, what's this? End of last week, kind of corrected back down. Thinking about we're leading into the markets, but it started to build itself back up again. Still not taking that all-time high, interestingly. Well, the S&P back down to the 50. This will likely just climb back up until we see the major correction from there. I think that's probably everything. Last thing really for me then to talk about is just where my portfolios sit. And it's changing. Once you sell the dot, it moves. So actually we're pretty much 60% in Tau at the moment. 25% of the portfolio is in near. Render is about 4%, and then memes take up around about 14% of the portfolio. And again, that started off at around about 5%. So memes have done well over the last 6-7 weeks for me. They've helped mitigate some of the losses on Tau. But memes are slumping a bit. They're not all withstanding the market pressures. They're falling too. But we'll see how that one goes over the next couple of months, what we do with that. And the business one still stays as it is. And as I say, that doesn't change. That's a safety net for me of, if I mess all the left-hand side up because Tau turns out to be some massive fraud scheme, and I'm certainly saying it's not. But, if there's something fundamentally wrong and it goes to zero and I lose an awful lot of money, at least I've got Bitcoin that I can hold on to going forward. But yeah, I think that's probably about it. There wasn't any questions that were asked for me to delve into, and I don't want to take up any more of your time than is absolutely necessary. What I would say is we've got a cuddle, actually. We've got a conference coming up in 2 and a bit weeks. I think it's the 23rd, something like that. So if you haven't booked on already, do. Maybe wait till Thursday, have a chat with Siam on the call, because it's not in the usual place. I think it's in the other hotel. It's only a couple of minutes walk, so it doesn't matter where you book your room. The one we usually stay in is cheaper. And I don't know where the evening event is, but I think the day event is in the posh hotel. So yeah, something to consider there. Obviously, we've got the trading pub at 1 p.m. on Thursday. And yeah, by then, hopefully we'll have an answer to who's going to be in the office come January. Hey, we've got 2 minutes of tinfoil hat time. Let's just go. I don't think the result is going to be accepted either way. If Harris wins, everyone's going to call foul, and they're going to start throwing out, immigration numbers and all that kind of stuff, voter ID, everything else to try and say why not. And I'm sure we'll get some sort of legal challenge. If the right wins and Trump gets in, I think we're going to see, an even bigger pushback in terms of people relinquishing power and moving in. And I'm not saying we're going down any sort of civil war kind of route or even major civil unrest. I don't know what you want to class 6th of January 2021. Some people class that as major unrest. Some people class it as a peaceful protest of a building. But I do see that could happen, and that could take weeks again to play out, leading to another market crash. So even if we do get the answer settled this week, it may not be the end of the volatility caused from this election. It's a shame, really, because it's supposed to be a democratic process. And right now, I don't care which side you're on. It feels so far away from that. But yeah, we are where we are with that. We're no better in the UK either. Absolutely. Right, that's it from me. Thanks again for everyone for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll see you all on Thursday. I will be staying up a little bit later tonight than usual, perhaps. So I'll just be chatting away in Discord as and when things come through. But I look forward to sort of seeing the world's take on everything come tomorrow morning. And I'm sure we'll have some interesting updates and chats in the group on that. Thanks, everyone. I'll speak to you all soon, and cheers now.